Well, welcome to today's Wednesday Walkabout. Things have absolutely exploded. I was gone over the weekend, and when I came home, well, this is what I came home to. I wish it would slow down just a little bit, but what can you do? It is glorious even in this state. I think it's beautiful. All of the foxglove, well, they are statuesque. The color is just perfect, if I do say so myself. The alliums are whimsical. They are so fun. This, I believe, is Ambassador, you guys, and I will put a link to all of the color blends alliums in the description box below. It perfectly echoes the color of some of the salvias that I've got, and definitely there's this kind of lilac pink thing going on over here, all kind of in the backdrop of this fabulous ivory It's a Breeze rose. This is in the Southern Living Plant Collection. So much deadheading to do. So a little bit of background info. I was in San Antonio this weekend, and while there we were going to do a little bit of hiking, and in the process of hiking the winds picked up, and let's just say I ended up in the ER with a pretty serious eye infection. So I am still recovering from that. So if I keep my sunglasses on, if I look like the sun is bothering me, I'm still a little bit light sensitive. So let's talk a little bit about what needs to be done now, because even though it looks glorious, it looks a little bit wild, and I want to establish some order to keep those blooms coming and to keep the overall tableau looking great. So if you would, here is my question of the day. Stuart, take kind of a slow span, and I'm sorry the light isn't any better. We had storms last night. We got lots of thunder, lots of lightning, but not a ton of rain, just a little bit of rain. And of course, the ever-present high winds. So they're looking a little bit shaggy, which is the essence of a cottage garden, and that's okay. But nevertheless, like I say, I want to establish a little bit of order, which will accomplish a number of things. It will make it look a little bit more tailored. I can identify any problems in the process, and also it will help me kind of keep bugs at bay, because if some things are looking like they're getting a little too crowded, or there's rotting foliage at the base of the bloom or at the base of the stem, then I can look into that so that I don't bring on a lot of roly-poly. So what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, it's a new month, and it's a new color, kind of what I'm calling peony or penta pink, and I needed to pull out some new Cool Jobs gloves since it is a new month and since I don't want to get my fingernails dirty. Okay, so speaking of pentas, here are some things that I'm getting ready to plant in the garden in a number of different places, in both containers and in the ground, because they are one of the toughest annuals that you can plant here in Oklahoma, and they attract pollinators like crazy. They were one of my favorite things that I planted last year, and these are pentas. That is, what is this variety? Can you read what that says? Lucky Star Deep Pink Pentas. And I've already planted some of these in my window box, which, as I told you earlier, is all decked out in pink. And I'll show that window box to you here shortly. And this, I went to Bricks yesterday, and this is a new to me Kufia, how do you pronounce that, you guys? Kufia. This is something that I don't, this is Sweet Talk Deep Pink, Kufia procumbens, and look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? It's got a little bit of a purple inside to it, insert on the, or not insert, but interior, and I just love the way it looks. Plus, this says it can take full sun and that it attracts pollinators, and it's a good cut flower. So this is new to me. I'm going to try about 4 containers of it and see how it performs. And then, because it also is a fabulous performer, I am going to plant some of this that I planted last year. I actually overwintered some of it. And this is kind of a white with a light yellow flush to it. And this is Lantana Shamrock White. That's kind of a fun name. So I'm going to be planting some of this in different areas, probably along the edge of the upper terrace and in some in some containers because I want the same kind of profuse bloom that I had in the summer that I think in many ways you can only get from really tough heat-loving annuals. So you can see that the basket that I planted last week, it needs a little bit of deadheading, and I planted this with some sun patience and some things, but it's really starting to fill out. And there are some of the aforementioned pink pentas that just haven't come into bloom yet. But this will be spectacular. All of this really likes the sun, and it should be great. I might even see if I can tuck in a little bit of that lantana. It may be too crowded. This is some of that vervain. I saw it in bloom at Bricks yesterday, and it blooms in a dark purple, very much just like the dark purple verbena, only this is a perennial. So in that way, in that respect, it makes it superior to me. And then this is some of that golden feverfew that I like to grow. And typically, you guys, I start it from seed. I let it go to seed. I save the seed. I sprinkle the seed around. And then Stuart, let me show everybody over here. What I typically do then is wherever it germinates in the garden, like here, here's a little one that germinated. I'll probably keep this one in place, but it germinates in a lot of different locations. The sun is kind of difficult here, but here's another one. And then here's some baby ones right here. And when they get large enough, I just transplant them into the containers or into whatever location where I want them to be blooming. While I'm down here, I'm gonna deadhead this pincushion flower, which by the way, is really great for hot, kind of dry locations. And I love the way it's got, I don't know, it's got this kind of whimsical floating head that I like. Okay, but
it's like it's on a spring.
It does look like it's on a spring or a slinky,
Yeah.
a slinky. So the window box is doing what I hoped it would do. You can see that it is already starting to fill out, and from the street, and we will give you a street side view here shortly, definitely this pink, this Penta pink, the color of the month for May, really is popping. And these are all annuals that will keep on blooming, but they too will benefit from periodically cutting them back and deadheading the blooms. But all of this, oh, that wind, Stuart, it just is about to drive me crazy. But it looks beautiful, and over here you can see some of these pentas. And then the contrast with this Dusty Miller, which I will continue to pinch back. Look right here, Stuart. I'm doing this. I know I've demonstrated this before, but I'm really trying to concentrate on techniques for new gardeners right here, so I'm showing them multiple times. So there you go. That will make these bunches of Dusty Miller that much more full, and I just kind of keep limbing up this Sunshine Ligustrum to make it a little airier and also give more room for the things underneath to bloom and really represent. Okay, so this is looking okay. I did tuck in some of my overwintered Joseph's coat, golden Joseph's coat, and some of it is just sticks right now, but slowly it is going to start filling out, and you can see where I've pinched. I keep pinching back the vervain. So ultimately this will be a symphony of that light gray, that Penta pink, and this purple vervain with some variegated ajuga that runs all across the length of the window box. And I think it's really spectacular from the street. And not only that, it's really lovely from inside as well. So in another 2 weeks, I fully anticipate that this will have gone beyond the boundaries of the edge of the window box and really be full. Okay, here's an answer to a question many of you had. What do I have growing in this pot? And this is a creeping thyme. This is one of my favorite things to do, is put something very simple like this creeping thyme into a really gorgeous container. This is a concrete container, that was a gift from a friend. And look, it's starting to put out little sweet white blooms. And I periodically give it a little haircut to keep it tight. A very enjoyable activity. And of course, it smells divine. I love it. So let's take a break here and see what else is going on. Okay, this is why I love what I do. So Stuart and I are out here, we're filming a Wednesday walkabout, and you know this channel, Barbara, is all about gardening. You are a master gardener, but it's also about really healthy aging, and you are the perfect example of that. Do you mind sharing your age?
I'm 90 years old.
She is 90 years old. Look at how slim and fit she is, and I'm going to guess you still do some kind of gardening.
Oh, all the time. I planted last night. My tomatoes got to go in right away or else we'll never make it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about you, and this is the kind of spirit that I think we gardeners share.
Well, thank you. We do.
We do share. Now, we share something else you told me.
Our calyx.
Our calyx. Yes, we never have a good hair day when we're working outside, do we?
Never.
Well, and you are here with your son-in-law, who is turning 66 on his birthday, and he and his wife are getting ready to abandon Oklahoma and move to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. But their kids left, and that means my grands and my great-grands are now in Pennsylvania.
Oh, my
word. So they got to go join them.
They've got to go join them, and that means you're going to have to go for a visit, too.
Occasionally. We haven't planned that yet.
You haven't planned that yet, but
It's garden season.
I think that is the perfect note to end this on. I am so glad that you came by. I'm so honored. Now, a number of you asked about the progress of the boxwood basil, and Stuart, right here, we might want to put in a picture of the boxwood basil from last summer because it was spectacular. Huge balls that were probably 1.5 feet across. They were gorgeous. And believe it or not, even though they technically are just annuals, some of them went to seed. You can see them right here. Now, even though they have gone to seed, and I'm thrilled with that, and this is a salvia, by the way, that I'll have to relocate. Even though I love that, I have noticed that they're not growing very fast, and I don't know if that's because they germinated and the ground temperatures were too cool. They may all of a sudden just explode because we've gotten some rain and we're also getting some heat. But I am going to do something as an insurance policy, and I'll show you what that is, and it's a great tip. Now, one of the reasons you may ask why I've got this under a cage is, number one, so I can identify where they're located in all of these dense plantings, but also because I want to keep the squirrels from doing any kind of digging here, and they might inadvertently, I'm sure, dig them up. Okay, so from here, this is where I've got my boxwood basil seeds. Now let me show you right here, and we will put a link in the description box below. This is the seed I'm talking about.
They can screenshot this.
Yes, yes, screenshot this. This is boxwood basil seed. And I am also getting ready to seed some purple ball basil. Now, this actually aligns with another question that you've asked me, and that is about my larkspur. Did I plant it as plants or did I plant it from seed? Well, I planted it from seed, but a lot of it were plants that I seeded in different locations, and then I relocated to this area. In this location, I am hoping they will go to seed and they will self-seed naturally in here. But again, as an insurance policy and to guarantee that I have it every year because it's a biennial, I want to start some new seedlings pretty soon. So here's how I like to do that. So I've got over here, if you follow me down Lemon Lane, which, by the way, let's take a moment to appreciate how lovely it's looking. The larkspur has joined the party. Look over here, Stuart. The larkspur has really joined the party, and it looks beautiful, I think.
Look at that.
And a lot of that will also self-seed. But I definitely want to replicate this look. And Stuart, did you capture just how gorgeous it looks through there with that It's a Breeze rose in the background, and then those fun allium balls, which have really delighted the kids in the neighborhood. and because I'm always interrupting myself, I'll interrupt myself one more time again. I did get some hose guides, and I've got 3 of them.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, I've got 3 of them that now guide the hose without crushing these plants beyond. And unbeknownst to me how it came to pass, but I've got some lettuce coming up in here. And I don't know how that happened, but it's kind of fun. And I'm actually probably gonna let it go to seed and see if it will go to seed and come back and just kind of fill this area in a very surprising, serendipitous kind of way. Okay, so if we continue our passage down Lemon Lane, we will come over here to what I am dubbing my seeding trough. So I thought about planting this with some kind of annuals or just anything in general. And then I thought, no, I could really press it into service much more effectively as a place where I could start some seeds, where I will then let them grow on, and I will transplant them to another location. So this is what I'm talking about. About 4 days ago, I planted some of this purple ball basil because I wanted some of its purple spherical forms to accompany the green spherical forms of the boxwood basil. You could also do spicy globe. And I just scattered the seed in here. Now you can see, hopefully, there's a little one that germinated right there. Can you see that? Okay, and then there's a whole clump over here that germinated. Now, why did they germinate that closely together, you say? Did I plant them that closely together? No, I actually seeded them continuously. There's another one, kind of evenly along this expanse, but I think with the heavy rains and things, probably there was a little bit of washout in this pot, and they all congregated into in one location. But do I really care? No. I will just dig up that entire clump and very gently separate those seedlings. So once I remove these, or maybe right now, what I will go ahead and seed in here is some more of this boxwood basil. And by the way, if you want to screenshot this on both of them, these are the seeds and the sources for both of these kinds of basils. I also seeded some boxwood basil in here on this end, and I also direct seeded just a little bit into that area where the current boxwood seedlings are. Now, if they all grow up, will they be too crowded? Absolutely. In which case, because basil transplants very easily, I will just move them about to wherever I want them to be located. So this is my great idea for today. This is a great tip for today. What else will I be planting in this seeding trough or another similar seeding trough? I will be planting some of the foxglove seedlings, because foxglove, when it's small, can be transplanted pretty easily, and I will want to get those seedlings in place before this fall, where they will hopefully grow on over the winter and bloom next year. So I will plant some seedlings in here, and the foxglove seed is very fine. And it likes to fall into cracks and crevices of things, whether that's mulch, whether that's gravel, whatever. And then I will, when they get large enough, I will dig those up on a cloudy, appropriate, amenable day, and I will transplant them to where I ultimately want them to live and bloom. And let's take a break here, Stuart, and I'll show you an example of where this has happened in the past. Okay, so follow me back down Lemon Lane and over across the social patio, and I'm going to show you where I have done this in the past when I didn't have a dedicated seeding trough, but I did have some container plantings with lots of area in which I could seed some things. And here's where I did it before. I just sprinkled some foxglove seedlings in here. It likes the protection of container growth, and here you can look, there's a little foxglove that grew up in here. And
that little, is it?
well, it's not that little anymore, but it would have gotten a lot bigger had I moved it out of this confined location and into the ground. So what I'll probably do is let this grow on, go to seed, let it drop its seed here, and this will be another kind of a seeding trough. Then when those grow up to be big guys and sleep in their own beds, I will move them into the area of the garden where I want them to grow and become part of the total garden design. And I think it'll be really, really wonderful. So I want to give you an update on something. Now this is a result of the rain. I need to pick some of these dead blooms off of this gorgeous Diamond Spire gardenia, which was our project last weekend, where I potted up this movable fragrance. And I want to answer another question you had. So a number of you asked me, do I have drainage in the bottom of this bucket? And yes, I do. And anytime I plant in a bucket, I just take a big nail and a hammer and I just puncture some holes in the bottom of the bucket. And then this is one of those Kobo baskets that was in my QVC line that sadly are not available anymore, but it is weatherproof, and this fit divinely inside this basket, and all of it has good drainage capability, which will be important for this gardenia, which again I can move around wherever I want it because I love its fragrance. And depending on the direction of the wind and where I'm sitting, and right now, because it's so windy in practically all directions, Stuart, can you smell that amazing fragrance? And there are so many different varieties in this collection, but I think this makes a brilliant Mother's Day gift. I think it makes a brilliant, like a hostess gift if you're going to spend the summer with someone. And even if you're in a place where it won't overwinter, maybe you can put it in the garage, or you can put it in some place where it can, or if you know, a lot of people have little conservatories, or they have sunrooms or something like that. You could overwinter it and then put it back outside. So they do have a certain degree of frost hardiness, but again, it depends on where you live and the severity of your winter. But look at all these buds. Look at all these buds. And whenever we go someplace and there is a gentleman that is kind of dressed up, why, I can just snip one of these off and put it in his pocket or in his buttonhole as a little impromptu boutonniere. I kind of like that idea. Okay, so let's take a break and let's see what else is in bloom. Now this tip is kind of about, it relates to our video, and if you haven't watched it, please do, about how you can get seasonal color all throughout the summer based on the type and the specific plants that you install in your garden. And what do I mean by that? Well, you want things to bloom at different stages and at different periods of time. So when the tulips and the pansies are done, then the foxglove and the roses begin. When the foxglove and the roses begin to wane, then the penstemon and the overlapping larkspur and probably the spirea and the butterfly candy will start. And that's what I mean. So I like to have both perennials, or I shouldn't say both, all three, perennials, annuals, and blooming shrubs coming along at every given point in time, preferably even through the heat of the summer if possible. So Stuart, in the foreground right there, you see that lovely delicate little pink? Okay, that's little Miss Bonnie Spirea, and that's a blooming shrub that is just now really starting to come out. I've got lots of blooms everywhere, most of it surrounding the social patio. You can see it here, and it echoes the pinks that I've got in the window boxes and other places. Now, I just installed, because I love the way it looks with the pinks, I just planted here a raspberry butterfly candy. And it is already in bloom. Now, I have noticed that as the bloom ages, they turn less from pink to more of what I consider to be a late summer red, which will be beautiful if you look through here and through the penstemon, all the way through to the orange rocket in the back and the fire chief. It'll be beautiful in that late summer fall.
kind of think I can kind of.
You think, and I'm sorry. And what I'll do is I might need to do a tessie-messy to show you. Now, so even though this is in bloom right now, and I like it, it's in bloom because it just arrived and it was in bloom when it arrived. When I planted this in the ground, when you plant these in the ground, as I did these other lavenders, the little grape and the little lavender, you can see the green tufts through here. These are the ones coming back from last year. So notice that they are not putting on color yet, and they won't be putting on color and blooming for, I'm going to say, maybe another 2 weeks or a little bit later in the season. That is what typically will happen with this butterfly candy raspberry. Typically it will not bloom this early, and so I will get these reds and these deep pinks that I want a little bit later in the summer at the appropriate time. But now that I got it in bloom, I know what color it will be, and it helps me orchestrate the color of the plantings for later in the summer. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, so next year, in other words, this will not already be in bloom. Next year, this will look like this, and it will be about to come into bloom weeks later with buds that are in this color. And I showed you that in, I believe, a Tessie Mussy last week. So that makes me very, very happy. What also makes me happy is how gorgeous this penstemon looks, and this is one of my favorite perennials, you guys. Now on Sunday I'm going to be doing a whole segment on how to garden in clay busting plants and techniques. And penstemons are wonderful perennials to plant in clay. Now, why do these look so big and beautiful and lush? Because I pinched them early on, and this is a smaller tuft I planted a lot later, and I can continue to pinch it. You can see where I pinched it once, and I can continue to pinch it if I want to delay its bloom and get it to bloom a little bit later. So in other words, you don't have to have all of your blooms at once. By timely and continuous pinching, you can delay that bloom till a little bit later. Now I think this looks absolutely spectacular, and if you see, I've got this lilac dark purple running through here, and then it continues down here. What that told me was that I had kind of a void in here where I wanted it. So I planted more in here, and not only that, I decided that I really wanted it to be full a little bit deeper towards the roses, which, by the way, Stuart, can we show them that these apple blossom beauties are coming into bloom now? So what I did was I thought, okay, this is a gardening risk worth taking. So I decided to get a package of this type of, it's also called goat's beard. I believe this is, I can't remember, this is Husker's Red, but I don't really care. I just got a package of penstemon seeds for maybe $3, and I decided I'm just going to seed some of it through here and see if I can get some of it to germinate in the areas that I want.
From where
Okay, just kind of through here, because remember, this is not going to last. This larkspur is going to go away, and then I'll have kind of a void in here, and I want some of it to bloom in the background of some other things that are coming into bloom back here along this edge. I'm probably not making any sense.
I think
this is layered planting. So ultimately, there's going to be, the roses are in bloom, then there's going to be some pink zinnias in here that come into bloom that self-seeded themselves. So in here, in this little void in here then, I wanted some more of this penstemon. So I just dropped some seed, and I'll be darned if I don't think some of it has germinated. So I've got some here, and I've got some here. Now, this is the importance of seedling recognition. I'm not 100% sure that's what it is, but I am willing to just watch and find out. It's something. It is something. There's a possibility it's celosia, but I don't believe it is. And if it's celosia, that's okay too. But it perhaps, perhaps could be some of the seed of the penstem and risk that I took that I thought was worth taking. So that's this little area that I typically don't concentrate a lot on, but just look, I just can't resist showing you guys just my favorite thing in the world in gardening, and that's these kind of color echoes. Look at that. That is just wonderful. And some of that purple ball basil would be beautiful. So let's say that I take a tuft, I take one of those plantings, little balls of purple ball basil, and I plant a purple ball that looks just like that right in here. And I think that would be spectacular if I do say so myself. Tell me what you think. And that's how my mind thinks. Take one tone, do tone on tone, whether it's an edible, whether it's an edimental, whether it's a perennial, whether it's a shrub, and just try to repeat those beautiful shades in and around the garden. So there you go. There is my embarrassment of riches for today. I feel like we might need to just take some B-roll, Stuart, of some pretty things right now, because I'm sure I've missed something. And yes, it looks a little bit overgrown, but that's okay. That's what a garden is supposed to look like after a thunderstorm and after some really good and much needed rain. Happy May Day. I am sending you a virtual May Day bouquet that I am hanging on your front door. I will ring your doorbell and run away. So thanks for hanging out on this May Day Wednesday Walkabout.